everyone. My name is Brittany Schultz, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Precisely. And I would like to welcome you to today's session in the Outdated Tech Invisible Expenses series. Today, we will be covering the hidden cost of disconnected data systems. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. As digital landscape changes, organizations are looking to embrace new technologies while maximizing the value of their legacy platforms. This is supported by research which shows that 85% of organizations will embrace a cloud first principle by 2025. 55% of leaders cite data modernization as the reason for their shift to cloud. 60% of tech leaders say that integrating multiple data sources is their biggest hurdle to accessing more real time data. So, despite the excitement around things like getting to cloud and adopting AI, organizations do need to be careful. And it is important to remember that often legacy systems like mainframes are still the backbone of the biggest organizations in the world. When talking to these organizations, it's not unusual to hear that up to 80% of their corporate data originates on the mainframe. And that business is still growing. The mainframe market is expected to grow to almost $3 billion by the end of this year. 90% of credit card transactions happen on mainframe systems. So that's about $2.5 billion in transactions per day per mainframe. Worldwide, mainframe systems handle about 68% of IT workloads, but only account for about 6% of total IT spending. Hence, the usage of mainframe systems is still more cost effective than other solutions. And of course, 71% of Fortune 500 companies do rely on their mainframe for mission critical transactional systems. And they are present in almost every vertical from financial services to insurance to retail. And with current market trends in data democratization and AI adoption, trusted data is more important than ever to fuel your business and when making timely, confident decisions. The entire organization is counting on your data to be fit for purpose and ready to run business processes while still being able to deliver successful initiatives across the business. But simply collecting company and customer data isn't enough. Successful organizations must be strategic in how they grow and maintain their IT environments. However, accessing all relevant organizational and customer data is easier said than done. Managing data across a complex mix of systems can present its own set of unique challenges. The reality of today's data landscape is that your organization is probably managing data across a combination of cloud offerings, on premises platforms, and mainframe or mid range systems. And if you aren't already doing so, you're probably planning too soon. Gartner found that 81% of respondents to their cloud end user behavioral survey use multiple clouds. And Microsoft found that 86% of respondents to their survey plan to increase spending on both hybrid and multi cloud infrastructure in the coming years. These hybrid multi cloud environments can create data silos if not properly executed, and trying to rush cloud migration and modernization can have dire consequences for the business. And when we talk about these challenges and risks associated with cloud migration, obviously there are technical issues, but it's clear that there can also be financial issues as well. As an example, there's a British bank, TSB, that ended up with an almost £50 million fine for a failed migration project. This caused both technical failures and locked millions of customers out of their accounts. Regulators found that TSB failed to organize and control their migration, as well as managing operational risks. So the FCA, which is the regulatory agency for this example, even said that the fines would have been significantly higher if the bank had not been cooperative with their agency and worked closely with a third party to help change the migration. And apart from regulatory compliance and fines, poor data integration can produce several challenges that can cost the business. First, you can see it through poor data quality. So, if your systems contain duplicate, inconsistent, or stale data, it's incredibly time consuming for employees to verify and correct these errors manually. Inaccurate data can undermine customer trust and lead to issues with shipping, billing, and things like personalization. And it can take years to recapture lost customers as well as rebuilding reputational damage. Then you have delayed insights. So, this is going to be the ability to identify emerging trends or changing consumer preferences, which can honestly be the difference between innovation and stagnation. And poor data integration will put you behind the curve. Then there's shadow IT. So if business units can't get what they want from the official IT systems, they'll inevitably create their own solutions. Shadow IT can be any kind of software, hardware, or IT resources that are being used on an enterprise IT network without direct approval from the IT group. It often skirts things like compliance and security requirements and can create significant risks. Shadow IT can also lead to duplicate spending on tools, fragmented data, and inefficient processes. Even temporary workaround increases can put burden on IT resources and create things like technical debt because systems will require increasingly more complex maintenance. And this will result in cascading issues. And we can talk a little bit more about technical debt in this context. So, poor data integration creates silos and inconsistent information across your systems. When organizations implement quick fixes rather than addressing core architectural issues, it can result in complex, brittle data pipelines and require excessive maintenance. This mounting debt manifests in other ways, so things like delayed projects, higher costs for the business, and reduced agility. As teams spend more time managing these fragile systems, they spend less time delivering business value. Now that we have examined how poor data integration and modernization or migration efforts can financially impact the business, let's take a look at a real customer example of how modernization is handled at a large scale company. And the company we'll be examining for this is going to be BMW. So, for decades, BMW has operated with a legacy mainframe environment. It supports over 600 applications across the business. So these are departments like R&D, logistics, sales. Different departments were using different mainframe data formats. So in this context, they were using DB2 and VSAM. The variety of data formats and data users created complex challenges around the maintenance, data organization, and data governance for these mainframe systems. These systems are also pretty costly to maintain. BMW then mandated that data should be completely migrated out of the mainframe environment by the end of year 2029. We find that this type of top down mandate to modernize is happening more and more in recent years. And at the time, BMW teams were concerned that a large scale migration would be unable to support all the applications at once and ultimately disrupt their business. And they were concerned that it could cause reputational, financial, and technical damage to BMW. So let's see how they were able to address this concern with real time data delivery and access. So again, we want to remember that this is all coming from the fact that BMW is setting this mandate that data should be completely migrated out of the mainframe environment by 2029. BMW then decided to use a phased approach that would support long-term migration while allowing for short-term modernization. They ultimately implemented an integrated solution that used both Confluent and Precisely to move data out of their mainframe while minimizing things like time, cost, and service disruptions. Ultimately, this solution meant that there was a smaller mainframe footprint. Teams were also able to leverage this joint Confluent Precisely solution to create and feed a new self service portal that end users could leverage to automate the creation of their own data pipelines. This user friendly portal allows teams within the organization, so within BMW, to quickly select and validate source data with confidence so that they can ensure that migrations are executed efficiently and accurately. Now that we have an example of how reliable real time data integration can positively impact modernization efforts, let's see how this can be represented in actual dollars. Please take a second to note that this is a hypothetical scenario and that calculating ROI for your business can look different than the calculations that we're about to do. So, for this calculation, we'll see how real time data access, as a result specifically of less time spent on API creation, can enable cloud migration and mainframe optimization while also reducing costs. First, you'll want to calculate the number of FTEs involved in the API creation and for pulling mainframe data. FTE in this context stands for full-time equivalents. It's going to be a unit of measurement that indicates the workload of an employee, and this is going to be used to quantify labor in this context. So let's say for this example, it's 10 FTEs to create APIs and pull data off of the mainframe. You'll then want to know the annual cost for the FTEs in this context. We'll say that it's $100,000 for FTE annually. And you'll also want to know the percentage of time spent on the data migration by these FTEs. So we'll say that they spend about 30% of their time doing this migration. Then you'll want to know the annual spend on external consultants that could be brought in to migrate mainframe data to cloud systems. So let's say we have two different values for this. The conservative value will say that you spend $0 on it. You don't have any external consultants. And for the likely value, you'll say that the annual spend is $100,000 on external consultants. You then want to calculate the percentage of the reduction time spent by your internal teams on migrating your mainframe data to the cloud. So we'll say that the conservative value is a reduction in 40% of their time doing this, and for the likely value, a reduction in 60% of their time doing this. And then you'll also want to do that for the external consultants as well. So let's say it's a reduction of 40% and a reduction of 60% again. To perform the final calculation, basically you'll be combining the internal values and the external values. So that's going to be the number of FTEs multiplied by the average cost of those FTEs, multiplied by the percentage of time spent migrating this data, multiplied by the reduction in time spent on migrating that data as a result of better data integration. Then you'll add all of that to the annual spend on external consultants for migrating this data by the reduction in time spent by these external consultants as a result of better data integration. This will get you ultimately the reduced costs from mainframe optimization or cloud migration. So the conservative value, you see $120,000 in savings, and for the likely value, it's $240,000 in savings. As I mentioned before, these calculations can look pretty different based on how your organization is made up. So in order to calculate the value of real-time data access and delivery, there are some metrics that you may want to include. The first is going to be direct cost savings. So you're going to want to consider savings from reduced infrastructure, custom development, maintenance needs, and licensing. You also may see savings coming from consolidating systems, reducing storage, and eliminating duplicate tools. Then you'll have increased revenue. So this is going to be dollars coming from improved customer insights, more cross-selling opportunities, reduced time to market for your customer applications, as well as developing new revenue streams. All of these things can be used to increase profits. Then there's enhanced productivity. This is going to be time saved, and it may include hours reclaimed from manual data preparation or maintaining legacy integrations, as well as things like faster decision making and faster application delivery. Then there is reduced business risk. So to calculate risk reduction and to quantify the decreased risk of data breaches, data loss, compliance penalties, business disruptions, and business damage, or rather brand damage. Then you have time to value. So this can include variables like faster implementation, reduced time to market, and more agile adaptation to shifting business needs. There are even more metrics that you can consider, but these were the ones that we felt were important to highlight. And with that, I hope you're leaving this session with a better understanding of how real-time data integration can impact your cloud modernization and migration efforts. If you found this session helpful, consider exploring additional resources that we at Precisely have around data integration ROI. Thanks for listening, and again, have a wonderful rest of your day.